Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Empowerment. I'm your host, Austin Jones. By now, I'm sure you are all familiar with what empowerment is. It's a podcast that myself and Caitlin Reed run where we try to give groups and social and human rights issues that don't necessarily have a platform or a time to shine light on the situation. We try to give those issues or groups a chance to talk and give their side of things. And for this episode, it's a very special episode because we are going to discuss Black Lives Matter from a Black American's perspective. Obviously, if you watched the women's episode, I did not give a lot of commentary in that episode because it's not my issue to speak on, and that's the same thing that I'll be doing for this episode. As a white man in America, I'm extremely privileged to where these issues don't directly impact me because I am white, but the least I can do is to use my privilege and platform to give others that are impacted that chance to speak. So what I'm going to be doing is just serving as sort of a moderator and bringing up the list of topics and then turning the floor over to my panel of guests so they can talk. And so at this time, I am going to turn the floor over to my guests to introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into the first topic.
Okay, who wants to introduce themselves first?
Well, you're talking, so.
Oh my gosh. Okay, my name is Laila McLean, or Kalayla. It's just easy to say Layla. Um, I'm very honored to actually thank you, Austin, for letting me be on this podcast. Honestly, this is kind of true to the heart. Really something that needs to be spoken on in America right now. There's a lot going on that, within Black Lives Matter, or just honestly within this racial community that needs to be, heard and spoken on. So, and I'm very glad, like I said, very honored to be on the podcast. This is awesome.
I'll go for the next. I'm Jameison, right? You might remember me from the first episode, if that's the first episode. I kind of
Yes.
mixed up, but I also like to thank Austin for being here. I think this is a great platform to talk about these issues that have been going on, like obviously with the big spike recently, but have been going on for decades now.
I'm not sure where our third guest is right now. So, uh, the third guest is my friend Xavier. I'm not sure where he's at the moment, but we'll go ahead and introduce him. And while we're waiting on him to get back, we can start to get into the first question.
All right.
Okay, X just let me know that his internet is acting up. So, whenever he can rejoin us, we'll allow him to introduce himself. The first question is, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you personally?
Jameson, you want to start off with this one? I think you should.
All right. I was talking about this earlier today, and this to me personally, the phrase Black Lives Matter, it's kind of started, right? Not started, I guess, but become more of a recent thing because of what
Right,
happened to George Floyd with the police and everything like that. And
right, right.
thinking about it in that context, to me, it kind of meant like just treating Black lives like us like fairly, like not even just like equally, but just like fairly. We want to be treated justly and fairly, and not be mistreated the way that so many have been in the past. Like whether it was George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or anyone like that, we just want
Right.
to be treated in a fair and respectable way, and not be either like killed or beaten in any sort of fashion.
All right. To go off what Jameson said, most definitely. Black Lives Matter to me personally. Well, I'm not going to lie to you guys today. When I first found out about Black Lives Matter, it was around the time of the killing of Tamir Rice. That was I was probably can't remember how old I was, but I'm pretty sure I was probably like in middle school when I found out about it. And that's when I first heard about it. And that's when I first heard about the Black Lives Matter movement. And that's when I realized, well, around that age, that's when I started to realize that my skin color was probably, well, not even that age, maybe a little bit younger. But, it was kind of a pivotal point when I hit middle school and I realized the case about Tamir Rice, where I was just like, wow, like, my skin color really does or can affect the way that I am treated, especially, growing up and being from the South of the United States. Um, it just, I don't know, it still amazes me to this day how somebody can be treated poorly according to their skin color, not, how they are as a person. So when I say Black Lives Matter, same thing as Jameson. Black Lives Matter isn't just a statement saying that, hey, we're better, we're superior to another race. It's just, hey, we want to be treated as equally as, the opposite race or any opposite races. And it's just awareness, trying to raise awareness. And I think it's something that's really dear to me because, I am a Black life. So, and it's just, I just really wish Black, this movement was something that everybody could be on one accord about. Because I honestly feel like, and I think this is kind of going into maybe some further questions that we have, but in all honesty, coming from me, Black Lives Matter should not be a political statement. It isn't a political statement. It is something, it's a humanity thing. It really is. Because when we're talking about somebody else's life and account for someone, I mean, it's just, honestly feel like it shouldn't, skin color shouldn't be, a reason as to why you treat someone, or it shouldn't be an indicator of how you treat someone. And sorry, I'm getting choked up a little bit, but
No, you're good.
I'm stuttering a little bit, but yeah, it is something that is really dear to the heart, and it is something that I wish that everybody was just with just kind of bonded with each other on. So yeah,
Yeah, and I want to kind of go off what you're saying about like it not being a political statement.
yeah,
I really agree with that because like with political statements, there's always like people can sometimes see that as controversial. But the thing about
right,
Black Lives Matter is that I don't understand how anyone can see that as
yeah,
controversial. I understand
exactly,
what could be so controversial about wanting to say that Black Lives Matter. Like, there's nothing controversial about that. It's just something we like that should just be a known thing. Is that we should all see that these lives matter. It shouldn't be like, oh, like that's kind of controversial. Like,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not. It,
See, the thing about
and
political, or keep going. Sorry.
no, you keep going. No, go. What you're saying?
Well, just to bounce off what you were saying, it's just that with politics, everybody has their opinions in politics, but with something like human rights, there are no opinions when it comes to human rights. Like you're either like that's something that I just can't maybe so for example, me and you, Jameson, we could have different political views, and that's fine because that happens. But when there's a point in time where you're like, someone's life matters more over the other person, that's when it's just like that's nothing political. That's something that shouldn't be taken very lightly. And it's just in the country that we live in, we just have a really bad background of treating
Yeah,
people not accord like just terrible due to their
yeah,
nothing but their skin color. So it's just wow, like how and it's
yeah, exactly.
yeah, it's one of those things.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that like with everything going on, that this can like inspire more change to happen because there's always
Yes,
in the past there will always be like a one singular thing that happens, and then people will say we should do better, and then nothing happens. But with how big the movement has gotten recently, it's been like the biggest it's ever been probably since
right.
Martin Luther
And
King.
right, most definitely. I feel like this is one of the hugest movements, not only nationally but internationally, honestly, because you see people, all over the globe protesting for Black
Yeah,
lives, and and that really tells you something. Like that really tells you something. Like I just honestly feel like going back to politics like that, this has nothing to do with politics. Like I've seen, I've heard a couple of people say, maybe Black Lives Matter is a way that the government is trying to do. Really has
yeah,
nothing to do with the government. They're like, um, it's a way to conform, and it's like there's no such thing. The government has nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, honestly, if we want to be, go back to the roots and why it was originated, it's because it was Black Lives Matter was, if I'm not mistaken, um, created by a few Black women as a response to the injustices of Black people. And if anything, everyone should be able to conform to human rights. Like that's something that you know, and who wouldn't want to, be for the equality of people? It would be inhumane not to agree with someone for not having access to the same rights as you. And
Yeah,
it's just, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I just don't see how somebody, and I guess that kind of goes into our next question, Austin, but, just I don't know. It's something that I'll never wrap my head around as to why somebody wouldn't agree to the Black Lives Matter
yeah.
movement. And I just really hope that, down the line, the people that aren't with it now will be for it later. Because, we all know that history repeats itself. And you don't want to be on the wrong side of history again, You don't
Oh, for
look,
sure. No,
yeah, you don't
no.
want to like go down the line and, maybe, decades from now and be like, wow, they were, this was the right way, or we could have done this to do better. But
Yeah,
that's just
I get you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I
Do you have?
love what both you said. I think Xavier has rejoined uh, our session. So Xavier, are you here? All right, so I'll take that as his internet is still hating on us.
Mm.
So going back to what Layla said about
Hmm.
how she didn't get people that were kind of opposed to it, that does tie directly into the next question. And so the next question is, when you hear all lives matter, whether it's just as a slogan or as a response to Black Lives Matter,
all right.
uh, what do you think and how does that make you feel?
Lila,
Um,
would you like to go first this time?
you can if you want to, Jameson. I'm just trying to get my thoughts
Okay.
together because this is woo a
No,
big
you're good.
one.
This one, yeah, this one's kind of loaded because to me, this is like a context thing. It's kind of like
Yeah,
when white people say it, it makes no sense to me. I'm just gonna say it because I don't understand how they think their life is in danger with with what with everything going on. Like the whole
exactly.
point of
You
this is
can,
that black people are being
yeah,
treated unfairly, like with not even just the cops, but just like by like other people in the system and yada yada. So I understand why white people think like, oh, like all lives matter, but it's like have you like you've never had a problem being judged by your skin color, like
but you
you've
know
never
what?
like
Oh, sorry, Jameson. I was just gonna go
no,
into what you
you can go.
said. Well,
No, go for it, go for it.
well, because if you think about it, this is gonna be a big one. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna take back what I
Hmm.
said. But if we really want to dig in deeper, people that say all lives matter, I think people really think people have an issue with Black Lives Matter is because they think it's based off of hate. But if you really look into it, I feel like the only reason they feel like that because all lives matter is based off of hate. You see what I'm saying there? So it's like, gosh, like if you like I'm getting choked. Like I really don't know how to really kind of verbally say it, but like all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter. That's just really you really don't believe that Black Lives Matter if you're saying it as a response, because if all lives truly mattered, then of course you should be fighting for, Black lives as well.
Yeah,
So it's really just as a
yeah,
like response, and it's just
It's
it's
an excuse. It's an
it's
excuse.
yeah, yeah. Most definitely an excuse, because it's like I had somebody tell me, when all this was going on, when there's still like a huge, internet debate about it. I had someone tell me they didn't really like the movement because they thought that it denied this country as like, as an awesome country or whatever, which that's a whole nother topic for another day, if you see where I'm going with
hmm
that. But I was
Yeah.
like, let's just think about it. I mean, if a country mistreated you and your people for nearly 400 years by enslaving them and denying them rights and slaughtering them, you wouldn't think of it as a great country either. So I honestly, I mean, I try to hear what they're saying, but I mean, I just can't, because it's like, I don't know, you can't just, I don't know, it's just a lot going on, and it breaks my heart to see when people who look like me that are mistreated and killed for no reason other than the color of their skin.
Yeah.
And it just makes me even more hurt when these same exact people are the ones that try to be like us and try to copy our culture and do the same things as us, and they see receive zero backlash for it, and it's like a slap in the face, honestly. So it's like you want us but you don't want us at the same time, and it's just like, really a huge slap in the face, because all these hashtags, that you see of these names that have been like, just slaughtered. And one day, it's just crazy to think, and just very, very scary and frightening to think that one day that could be my name behind a
Yeah.
hashtag.
hmm
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it's like, just, it's the privilege. The privilege is there, most definitely. And
Oh yeah.
it's just crazy to think that I don't know. It's just very very frightening to think. And then just think about it. We have a whole nother generation that's probably we have people like in the generation after this that has that's going to think this way as well. But
Hmm.
yeah, and it's just very very frightening to think that somebody in healthcare could think the same. It's just frightening. It's just frightening to think that that there's people that actually think that way, and they're going to be like our politicians or our
Mhm.
doctors or our
Hmm.
lawyers, and it's just
And then they're gonna
wild
grow
to
up
me to
on
think. But
this.
I'll let one of you guys to take it. Yeah.
Yeah. X, would you like to go since you haven't really weren't really here for the first? Would you like to say your piece?
Yeah, I'll go. Sorry for technical difficulties, guys. Y'all know how it goes. Technology has great timing.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
But when I hear all lives matter to me, what does it make me think? It makes me think that you're ignorant first and foremost. If one of my biggest things is I can't accept your opinion if you're not knowledgeable on the subject. If you
Right.
refuse to sit down and actually understand where people are coming from, we're never all going to agree. As much as I would like us to, we're never all going to agree. But if you can't
Right.
sit down and at least educate yourself onto why people feel a certain way, then I can't respect you for that. But when I hear it, makes me think you're ignorant, and like it makes me feel like you're just trying to skate around it. Like I said, it's an excuse. It's a scapegoat. You don't want to talk about the
For
subject, so
sure.
you change the subject. Why is everybody always trying to change the subject?
Yeah. To go along with what X said, it's like you said, it's a scapegoat. Perfect word for it. It's a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Using something to deny somebody else's opinions. And I must definitely agree with you, X. I can't really, not argue, but like kind of like talk to you and discuss with you if you're not fully, educated on the topic. So it's
Yeah.
like one of those things where if you don't know why people are saying Black Lives Matter, then maybe you should kind of, try to educate yourself on it, which
Yeah.
isn't really hard. I mean, come on now, it's 2020 and you have access to almost everything internet,
Mm-hmm.
books, you name it. I mean, you have access to it. Or
Yeah.
even just asking someone or your fellow black friend how they feel about what's going on.
Hmm.
And and some of these people they can't sympathize, and their ability to not being able to sympathize really affects how they feel. And I don't know, it's just one of those things where if you don't know, like you said, X, if you don't really know much, then stay out of it, if you're not an ally or anything like that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's all lives matter. I just Yes, it's true. Like, yes, we all know that all lives matter. I
Yeah.
know you've all kind of already seen this, but it's like one of those things where it's like that little comic where it's like, my house is on fire, and they're like, well,
Yeah.
all houses matter. It's like, well, yes, all houses matter, but since this one is on fire, then this is the one we should be tending to. You
Yep.
know, it's one of
Precisely.
those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely a perfect analogy for this. And
Yes.
I don't think people realize that Black Lives Matter isn't denying the fact that all lives do matter. We're not saying
Yeah.
that Black lives are superior to other lives. We're saying that, hey, we matter and we should be able to
Yeah.
be, have, like I said earlier, have access to everything else that everybody else does. And we shouldn't be treated poorly because of our
Yeah.
skin color. So it's like a
Yeah.
slap in the face. It
That's
really is.
perfect. It just goes back to all lives matter until they can't matter until Black Lives Matter. That's what,
Exactly. Yeah,
like
exactly.
it
Yes.
all goes back to that.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said we were superior
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
better or anything, any word of that, any nature in that. It's just you can't ignore what's going on, and everybody either people want to ignore it or they want to hate on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's Black Lives Matter. It's not Black Lives Matter more. It's
It,
just
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter. Like
it's
it's like we're part of it.
yeah.
And actually, I was thinking about this too. It was like kind of like a random kind of question I was thinking in my head. But it's like obviously we're talking about how like well I was thinking more I guess like when white people say all lives matter, but like when other races say all lives matter, like
Oh,
do you feel
yeah.
like the same way or do you feel like you
Hmm.
feel the same way? Okay.
Yep.
I was just curious actually. I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. It's an interesting topic for sure.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
you can look
Most
at it
definitely.
from very different perspectives.
And Austin, I know this isn't on the agenda, but can we also talk about when people say hashtag Blue Lives Matter?
That actually, yeah, that can certainly
I just technically
relate to All Lives Matter. So if you guys would
We please.
like to discuss Blue
Um,
Lives Matter, then yes,
Yeah.
you are more than
can we
free to
please?
segue into that right now.
Ooh.
Do you guys want me to say something first, or do y'all
Uh,
want to go first?
can I
We
go?
can take turns.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
let's
go.
take.
Yeah, you
Let
go,
me
X.
Let me start off by saying this. I know plenty of people who are cops. I know plenty of people who are cops. I work at a school. I know the SRO. Not all cops are bad. Let me start by saying that. Not all cops are bad.
Yeah.
But when you sit here and it's a mockery to me. When you sit here and mock the Black Lives Matter and replace it with Blue Lives Matter, it's a mockery to me. And if you really sit here and think that police treat people equally in this country, you're a fool. I'm sorry. You're just a fool. If you can sit here and say the police need such and such equipment to stop, like they're not going into siege warfare in the middle of the streets right now.
Honestly,
they're just not.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And to go off what you said, X, like you said, all cops are not bad. And I will say, like, the whole ACAP thing, like, I see where people are going with that, but I can't really just say that, all cops are truly bastards because they're not.
Yeah.
But, like, honestly, let's say, I mean, you know how some people are saying, like, there's just a couple of bad apples. Well, the thing is, you can't in a profession like that, you just can't have a couple of bad apples. That's like saying, like, that's like, for example, like in the healthcare profession, you can't just have a couple of bad doctors. Like, you can't just like, well, oh yeah, accidentally, I just accidentally cut this man's heart open, but I didn't. Yeah, you just don't do that,
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
that's just one of those professions where you have no room for mistakes, like stuff like that. You just can't, and I mean, when people say, like you said, it's kind of like mockery, Blue Lives Matter, but I don't think people truly understand. There's no such thing as a blue life. There's no such thing as a blue life. You chose to be a police officer. I didn't choose to be black. You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where you can take off your uniform at the end of the day. However, I can't just, wake up, scroll through my closet and be like, I think I'm going to be Hispanic today.
Yeah.
I think I want to be white today. It's not one of those things.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, if you're a police officer, you knew what you signed up for.
Yep.
And you knew what came with, the profession that you chose. So, like, Blue Lives Matter, that's so, like you said, it's mockery. And I'm sorry for being repetitive, but it's just one of those things where it's just what is said is what's said. Like, there's really not a lot. You can't beat around the bush or anything.
Yeah.
So when people say Blue Lives Matter, I mean, I don't know how to say it. You're racist. Like, that's so racist. Because I understand that your dad's a cop, or your uncle's a cop. At the same time, if your dad goes home and jokes about how many niggers he arrested, or how many they do this, they do that's not acceptable at all. Because little like I said, I'm from a small town in Tennessee, and it's a harsh reality that we have to face, that there are some racist officers out there, and it's close. And the thing that scares me is just I see stuff on the news or Twitter or whatever, but I see it like personally. I see it personally, and that's one thing. It's just like, whoa, it's crazy. Like, I see this happening from where I'm from, in other surrounding counties and cities, and it's like it's here. Like, it's here. It's always been here. And that's another thing that I'm sorry if I'm getting off track, Austin. I'm sorry, but it's just one of those things. I seen someone post something like, um, all this stuff is bringing out, it's just making more racism, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, you can't really say that, because racism has always been here. It's just out in the open now. It's like being exposed. So I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't know. It's just really heartbreaking to think about, as a person of color, for someone to, turn around and take your movement and turn it into something else that's has nothing to do with it. Really, the complete opposite, if I'm being honest. And it's heartbreaking. It really is, just to know that, I could be, I could be out in public one day, doing something with my friends, and I get pulled over, and I'm treated, and my life is at stake now because I am black. I am. And that's just. Oh, you can go, Jameison.
No, it's good. I was gonna say, like, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like, it's just, it feels like people say this are just making a joke out of it, because, like I said, like earlier with the first question, like the whole point is that black people are being mistreated, and the whole point is like just to be treated fairly. understand how cops are being treated as badly as Black lives. Like I don't understand how people think that. Like
Yeah. Uh,
and oh no,
go ahead.
you what?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And it's just no, you're good. And it just baffles me because I don't see it. Like when have
Right.
cops ever been like mistreated as badly as Black Lives
Right.
Matter? Like when have they gone through the struggles we have? Yada yada. Like
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah.
like they get maybe called names or stuff like that, but nothing as harsh as what they've done to us. So I
Oh,
think
for sure.
saying
I
that
think,
is just making a complete joke out of everything, and I think that's just really disrespectful to the movement that's happening.
yeah. I'd like to ask Austin. I got a question for you. Just
Yes.
as an example, when you got your driver's license, what is the first thing your parents say to you? Like, just roughly. I know it was a minute ago. You probably don't remember. But like, what was the first thing your parents said you got your license?
They just really like watch speed limits, like don't be on your
Yeah.
phone,
Mhm.
drive safe, pay attention to, it was mostly it because I think I know where you're going with it. It was mostly
Yeah.
just traffic things. Never anything to do with the police or like what to do when they pull you over or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yep. The first thing that guy told me was what to do if I ever got pulled over. That's the first thing that happened.
Right.
If that doesn't if that doesn't have significance to you, I don't know what else will.
Oh, yeah,
Like
most definitely.
I'm 16, mom's terrified, just got my license, and the first thing they had to teach me is what to do if I get pulled over so I don't get shot.
Mm.
Exactly. I remember one time I was in my sorry if I cut you off, X, but
No, you're
I
fine.
remember one time I was in my hometown and I was with my cousin and we were going back to my grandparents' house. I'm from Marshall County. It's probably like an hour away from here, but even more significantly, it's probably like 15 minutes up the street from Pulaski where the KKK started. So we were on my way back to my grandpa or on our way back to my grandparents' house, and I see lights behind me, and I look at my cousin, and she looks at me, and we're just kind of like terrified. So we pull over to like the nearest like it's probably like 7 o'clock. It's a little dark, and we pull over, and like I'm terrified. So I look at my cousin, and I'm like, "Be calm, we're okay." I said, "I'm gonna put my hands on the steering wheel, and you just look straight ahead. We're gonna be fine." So my chest is kind of like beating pretty fast. My chest is like going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Pulls me over. The cop comes out of the car and he was like, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" I was like, "No, officer, I have no idea." And he was like, "Why do you look so scared?" And I really didn't respond. And he was like, "Well, the reason I pulled you over was because you you forgot to turn your headlights on." And I was like, "Okay, sorry. We just got in the car. We're kind of rushing on the way back home. We're sorry." He was like, "It's okay. I thought you would have cut them back on, but just be careful next time." And we were like, "Okay." And also, I was in my grandmother's car too, so when he like went back and looked up my name, or tried to look up my name, my name didn't match because I was in I was in my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother's car, so I'm like, I was thinking about that as well. So it's like I'm not in my car, so
Mm.
but hopefully, now that could have been something, it's just something that goes. I mean, yeah, it was something small, but at the same time, just because of where I am or where I was and my skin color, I thought, it was something different or could have, something silly like me, forgetting to cut my headlights off turned into something serious for me, as in like, that could have been my life. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be dramatic or anything, but
No,
that's the
no,
type of
it
stuff you have
could.
to think
That's the
about.
point. That's the
Yeah.
point. If it's something we have to worry about, like that's an issue. We shouldn't have to worry about dying just from a simple traffic stop
All
or
right.
just because you're in the car and you're of a certain skin color. You shouldn't have to worry about that. That's a problem.
All right. And it was something. Wow. I mean, I never told my grandma about what happened. Not that that she wouldn't care. I mean, well, it was something small, so I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have, But I just didn't tell her, just in fear that the police, pulled me over, and I didn't want her to like, be like really worried about it, not let me like drive her car anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
still, it's something that's, and it's just crazy to think about how somebody's would think. I don't know, guys. You can take it from here because I don't really want to just go into super depth,
No.
but
I personally, I'm not driving really right now, but
hmm
like I don't have my license or like that. But same thing. Like whenever my mom was first teaching me to drive, she kind of said the same thing. Like I was like if cops ever do pull you over, just like do this, like keep calm, cool, collected, everything like that. and that was pretty much the first thing she taught me. She kind of just that was like before anything really.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of agree. It's
Right.
just like it's so upsetting that the first thing we have to learn is that like how to act in front of cops so that they
Yeah.
might not shoot or arrest us or any like, etc. Like anything like that. And it's just kind of just it's crazy to me to think that like not everyone has to learn that. Like we specifically have to have that lesson taught to us, but other people who learn to drive don't really. They kind of just learn everything else but that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely understand and respect where all you guys are coming from and understand that, like, growing up and when I got my license and thing like that, like, as a white person, I did not have to go through those things because I am white. And, which I feel like that in itself should pretty much tell you how phony Blue Lives Matter is. Because, like you guys said,
Mhm.
blue lights don't exist. You chose to be a cop.
Right.
But circling back to, like, the all cops are bad, when people say that, I believe, just from what I've seen, is they understand that individually, like, there are good people that are cops, but the
Mhm.
entire
Oh
cop
yes.
system
System. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
bad, which actually does lead us to the next question, or topic. Common saying has been defund the police. When you hear defund the police, personally, like, what do you think of? What changes do you think of? Do you agree or disagree with the idea of defunding the police, and why?
Oh, I most definitely agree. I mean, because if we think about it here, let's just think about it. I mean, we I think we all know that the funds of police like vary in different states,
Mm-hmm.
but
Hmm.
across the board nationally, we see that the police gets a pretty big chunk of money, even in the billions, especially in like the more populated states and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's
Hmm.
just crazy to me how some people actually think that defunding the police really just means like stripping them of everything. Like
No.
they don't think
And,
about, maybe taking some of this and giving it to like, the education systems which are really, really poorly funded. And
mm-hmm.
really it's really like another thing. It's just a lot of people just aren't educated on things because it's like this is going to be a big one too, but I feel like America knew exactly what defunding meant when they wanted to get rid of Planned Parenthood. Let's just think about that.
Yeah.
So like, um, I honestly think that defunding the police is, well, going back to the question, I'm just reading over it right now, but basically, like I said, defunding the police means maybe just taking some of this money and putting it towards healthcare systems or education systems or just places that really need it. Because I mean, when all the riots were going on, I think we all saw how much equipment and how like much like how much equipment these policemen and were strapped in, and it's like, and then it's just crazy, like $4,000 and $5,000 worth of equipment per officer that they were in. I mean, I could be wrong, guys. I could be wrong, but it's just crazy to me to think that they were in all this expensive equipment versus when we have people in the healthcare profession that are battling COVID-19, and some people in some hospitals and places were struggling to get the supplies they needed because there wasn't enough money to go around or enough money to be circulated, and it's just really, I feel like all this is kind of like just showing how flawed our country is and how each system within our country is just unbalanced, and just really, like I said, how imperfect and how corrupt things are, where we have money going to the wrong places. And like I said, it's truly heartbreaking because it's just wow. And so I most definitely agree with defunding the police, most definitely, because there could be a lot of things going towards. I'm really passionate about like if you have guys haven't noticed, I'm really passionate about healthcare, but I'm also very passionate about education systems because
Mm-hmm.
there's so much, you know, there's um there's so much, there's in so many, places in our country where education, where teachers, well, let's just talk about teacher salaries, honestly.
Oh
Teachers are
yeah,
only getting paid like, what,
very
30,000,
small amount.
30, yeah,
Yeah.
30 to $50,000 a year.
It's
And
ridiculous. They have
it's
one of the
ridiculous.
hardest jobs on the planet.
They have one of the most critical jobs on the planet as well.
Yeah.
You're teaching these
Yeah.
kids, you're teaching children, and this is what they'll take. Hopefully, this is what they'll take out of life. Take with them once they get older and progress. And it's just like you can only do so much with one teacher, and some like out of date books and stuff. I mean, we've seen it, you guys. Like we've seen it. I'm pretty sure we've all seen it where
Yeah.
and it sucks a lot, and it's just one of those things where we could be putting this money to where we actually need it, or where it can be very very extremely helpful and aidful. But that's my take on it. So
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's like we all live in the US. So for me, it goes back to the old adage, money is power.
most
For
definitely.
me, taking away some of the funding from police takes away some of their power.
Yeah.
They it it's a power struggle for the most part. For whatever reason, some policemen and women feel like they have to do these things for power, which makes no sense to me. I'll never understand it. But
And
if you
oh,
take some of the money away, then it shows that you're actually trying to help. Nobody at the top wants to help. That's my problem with it. Like we have athletes speaking out,
most
certain politicians, people, but nobody who's in a position right now at the top wants to do anything about it.
Most definitely. And like you were
Yeah.
saying with money or money equals power, and how you were saying that. Sorry, Jameson, I mean to cut you off, but
No, you're good. You're good. Go
what
for
you
it.
were saying with like money is power, and taking money would be like taking power from the police. And we've all seen it. Like, okay, Austin, we've been in psychology. And you remember the Stanford prison experiment?
Yes.
Where you were shown that, I mean, basically, just to wrap it up, basically the whole experiment in one just shows that when people are giving a position in power, just regular people, when they were given, where the guards were given power, they felt like they were more superior to their to the people, other people in the experiment, because I mean, it just shows you like they were all regular people, but once they were assigned a role, it just showed that power. You know, I don't want to sound ignorant trying to explain it. I just keep tripping up, but if you were to look up the Stanford prison experiment, you would know
Yeah.
exactly what I'm talking about. You see it, like,
Like how they can go to their head, basically.
yes,
Yeah.
most definitely by Zimbardo.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with like defunding the police because, like you said, like their budget is like in the billions, and I feel like a lot of that money could go to better things, like you said, like healthcare and education. Education, I think, the big one. I think
Big,
goes
yeah.
to because I think the gear that a lot of police have, like I'm not sure how realistic this is, but I was watching this thing about some of the gear that police have, and I was like, this is so unnecessary to have.
Right.
Just like you said earlier, X, like they're going out, like their sole purpose is to protect us, like they're protecting
Yeah.
us and everyone around us, like that. They're not going to warfare. They're not. Their sole intention is to not hurt people with the weapons they have. It's just to go out and make sure everyone is
Yeah.
like fine, everything like that. And I think it's a lot of that could just not be bought and
Yeah.
going to other
Mhm.
areas of like that need it.
Yeah, to kind of clarify for numbers, I know Layla was talking about New York earlier. According to the Citizens Budget Commission, as of June 12th, 2020, about $11 billion was the New York Police Department's budget. Um, while the social services and Department of Education were had more funds, that still does not mean that police should need $11 billion.
Oh, for sure.
What are you doing with $11 billion?
Yeah. How? What? I'm,
11. That's just really kind of like unfathomable. Like it is going
yeah.
just straight to police. Like I mean, I'm just not computing in my
The
head.
excerpt from the
How you get
website says that New York City's expenses for the New York City Police Department will total $10.9 billion, comprised of the $5.6 billion NYPD operating budget and $5.3 billion cost of centrally allocated, including $2.3 billion for fringe benefits, $2.8 billion for pensions,
Oh my
and
god.
$215 million for debt service.
God.
Century allocated
Oh.
costs for the NYPD are particularly high since uniformed health insurance and pension benefits are more generous than for other city employees.
God. And what were you saying? And what were you? Can we see how like that looks compared into like the funding for New York like education systems? Did you say that? I'm sorry.
Um, I'm looking at it now, and the Department of Education has roughly $24 billion, the social services has roughly $10.3 billion, and the NYPD itself has a roughly 5.6. But then the other added costs that they mentioned in the excerpt that I read.
But still, like, why would the police need $11 billion? I'm just not. I just can't imagine what they're. I don't know. It's just.
They're wasting.
Yeah.
It's. I like to state this just for the record. I understand that stuff happens. I understand that.
Yeah.
Like, stuff happens. They need to be able to defend themselves if necessary. But I don't think you need that excess amount of money for what your job description is. That's just me personally. I'm sure a lot of people in uproars about this, but it is what it is.
One of my favorite takes is that, you know, you look in New York and you see that the Department of Education and Social Services are funded more than the police, but
Oh, sorry.
you're okay. It goes to the leadership and the spending of funds. It's obviously not, what they're doing is not working. That's not working, and adding a higher police presence is not going to make anything better. You know, people like to say that, oh, well, you know, look at these areas, you know, look how highly, some people like to compare black crime to white crime, and they'll be like, oh, well, look how much more black crime's committed. Well, there's underlying issues to that, because there are a plethora of things that, especially in certain areas, that black men and black women and black children will be targeted for and prosecuted more than white men and white women and white children. So that's really an issue that you see when you try to compare that, oh, well, if you defund the police, crime's going to raise. No, most people don't do crime for fun. They don't do crime because they want to. They commit crimes because they have to.
Yes.
They have to commit crimes because they have been given no other options in life. They are not given a plan to get out. You know, look at majority black public schools compared to areas that are majority white public schools. Look at the qualities. You know, they are not equal quality, which then leads right back to the same point. You know, if you were to take these funds from the police and push them into inner city schools and improve the quality of inner city schools, then there would not be a need for crime. If you would take these funds from the police and put them into social services, you would not have cops responding to calls that they do not need to respond to. I remember I read a case, and I feel awful because I cannot remember the names involved, but there was a suicidal, I believe a young black man was suicidal, and somebody called the police to let them know that he was suicidal. I think he was home alone, and he had a gun, and he wanted to kill himself and end his own life. And the police killed him. They responded to the call, and they killed him. And now, I could be wrong about the race or the gender of this human, but nonetheless, there was a human that was suicidal and wanted to commit suicide, and the police showed up, escalated the situation, and killed this person. If you take funds from the police, put that into social service and social workers, you can send social workers to those calls, and people that are actually trained professionals regarding mental health and suicide can talk to people like that and talk them out of it. That's what people do not get about defund the police. It's not going to make crime rates raise. It's not going to turn the world into a purge. It's not going to do that. It's going to give funds to education, so you give young children a legal path to victory. We do not give inner city kids a path to victory. They turn to crime because that's all they're given. They can't get jobs. They can't get good paying jobs. They can't get they can't get quality housing. They can't get a higher education. They can't go to college. They can't do these things. And it all ties back to systemic racism and a process and a system that has been in place in this country. So I just really hate when people sit and say defund the police is going to ruin everything. That's not going to cause a purge. You're not going to get robbed. It's not going to go into anarchy. It will simply give funds to places that need it and help us build a better future. Because we can either go in the path that we're going right now with corrupt and abusive police who over police minorities and continue and create a continuous cycle of imprisonment, or we can shift these funds to social workers and school systems. That way inner city kids can go to school and they can learn and they can have a path to education and they can break that cycle. And now that I've given my tangent, I will go back to being silent, but I just really needed to get that off my chest.
You
Well
summed it
said.
up perfectly.
That was well
because
said. Yes.
like you were saying, like, and then just to add on a little bit to what you were saying as well, when you were saying how people are saying, defund the police means that defunding the police basically means that we're just gonna rise up, or people think that we're gonna just rise up into anarchy and something like that. And the thing is, the people are saying this like this isn't gonna direct them. This isn't gonna affect them directly, and that's another problem. That's another like problem within this country. It's like we only care, like people really only care about themselves and not others, or they only care about themselves until they don't really care until it happens to them, basically, or they have to see it to believe it,
Yeah.
or they have to see these things to believe it, instead of just they're just thinking about their own personal opinion. Well, maybe like you can't do that. Like you have to take into account someone else's life, like somebody else that might be a little bit more unfortunate as you. And that is what's wrong with this country. It's one of those things where majority of the country believe, like, the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor, or if you're born into this lifestyle, you have to stay in this. And if you're and that's another issue, I guess, that I could add on, that kind of goes off of what Austin was saying. But Austin, you were most definitely correct.
Yeah.
Straight facts were said.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
you caught me at the word escalation.
Yeah,
I
most
I
definitely.
don't remember the man's name, and I apologize. There was a video on Twitter. I'm sure y'all have seen it. The man, he was walking down the street. I forget where he's from, but because he's a black man, he has some health issues. He was literally walking down the street. His clothes were a little dirty because of his race. The police showed up. They asked him what he was doing, and the first question he asked is, "Why are you stopping me?" He has the right to ask that. He has the right to ask why he's being stopped. And they got upset why that he asked, and they escalated the situation. You stopped a man who was on foot. He doesn't even have a car. Why are you getting upset because he asked why you stopped him? He has a right to know. So the situation escalated, and they ended up breaking his. They broke one of his limbs. I forget what it was. They slammed to the ground and broke one of his limbs.
I haven't heard of this story.
Why?
Crazy.
Why?
Yeah, I haven't heard of that story, but it does remind me of that case in Buffalo that, I know it got a lot of publicity. Of course, there was a Black Lives Matter protest going on in Buffalo, as they have been going on across the country. And they had police in their riot gear out there, and one of the police had lost one of their, face mask shield things that the riot gear has. So an elderly man, I believe he was in his 70s, picked the face gear up and tried to return it to the police, and they shoved him to the ground and cracked his head open. His head bounced off the concrete sidewalk, and you can see blood trickle out of his head where they cracked it open. And that really in itself just shows how much escalating police do. And what I don't get is, as a white man, I have a lot of other white friends that, quite frankly, just they don't understand. They don't get, why is it black? And it's everything that you guys covered earlier between, like, why is it Black Lives Matter? I think they don't get it, or they'll be like, oh, well, the police, they attack, they kill white people too. They attack white people too. So my question to them is, the Black Lives Matter is not just from what I've seen, I don't think it's only advocating for the equal treatment of black people. Like, of course that is a big part, but it's also advocating for a better policing system, better human rights overall. So my question is to the white people that say that, oh, well, police attack white people too. Why are you okay with that? Why does that not upset you like it upsets other people? Like, why can you see police brutalize and kill white people and be okay with it? Because I see a lot is, you'll get people that, to try to undermine the Black Lives Matter movement, they will talk about white people that have been killed by the police and be like, oh, well, where was the attention for this? And then you look into it, and Black Lives Matter advocated for justice for them too. Black Lives Matter does not only advocate for black victims of police brutality. Black Lives Matter advocates for all victims of police brutality, no matter gender, sexuality, color. They don't care. If you have been brutalized or abused by the police, they advocate for that.
Which is another
So,
reason why you see more than black people at Black Lives Matter, like, protests. I mean, you see people of all
Mm-hmm.
races there. It's not, just, I mean, yes, it is Black Lives Matter movement, but like you were saying, it caters to really anybody, honestly, that, people of, social injustice. So that's why when you go to these, or when you, like, see these videos of protests, online and stuff, it's not only just, I mean, yeah, you kind of do see a majority of black people, but you do see people that are from other races. Is because
Mhm.
we know and we are aware that there are other people of color that are being mistreated other than black people, and we stand for that. And I just don't see. And then, like you were saying, Austin, when people kind of trying to like bring up white on white crime, or like not white on white crime, but people being white people being victims of police brutality. And what people aren't realizing is because there are more white people in the US than there are, people of color. That's why people of color are minorities. You see what I'm saying there? So that's another reason. But like you were saying, like, I don't see how people can bring up, white people are being murdered in the streets too. Well, that's an issue. And why are you not, upset about that? Why
Yeah,
is that not
that's a really
major?
that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I I don't know. It's one of those things where you just need to be educated. Like, you
I
have
just
to educate yourself.
I'm a big believer in cycles. I think everything happens for a reason. That's just me, but it goes back to education. There are kids who are born, like you said, nobody asked to be black. You're just born.
You right?
Yeah.
And there are kids who they grow up in Section 8 households. They grow up in the projects. They grow up in less fortunate neighborhoods. And going to school is the best time of their day. Like,
Yes, most definitely. It's like their
going to
getaway
school,
from school, right?
yeah,
I mean, not from
For
it's
school, but
kids,
from
yeah.
home.
from the home life.
Yeah.
And if you don't put the funds into the school, it's almost the same, if not the same, as what they're at home. And they
Because
wonder why the kids don't pay attention or listen or care because you
right.
don't. It's the same. You have to show some hope for these kids eventually.
Yes.
Somebody they need somebody to believe in them. I'm a huge believer in that. I don't like. I'm in college, graduated high school. I wouldn't be where I was at today without certain individuals.
Oh,
I
most
fully
definitely.
believe that. I would not be where I'm at today without my parents, my high school teachers, my mentors, people. You need some kind of hope and motivation. And people, you don't get that when it's all in the system to bring you down.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
most definitely. This system was never designed for people of color. Never. It was never designed
Yeah.
for people of
It
color.
was never designed for anybody who's not at the top. Let's
Yes,
just
most
be
definitely. If you're
honest.
not a white size male, it wasn't designed for you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like we covered a lot of good things about the policing and all that. Now we're kind of shifting to an issue that doesn't it doesn't really have actually doesn't have anything to do with the police, but it's it's still a important issue. For as long as we've been alive, meaning like us in this chat, our generation,
Right.
born in the early 2000s, as we were growing up, there was glaring underrepresentation for people of color in media, like
Mm.
movies, TV shows, and especially children programs. Um,
Yeah.
growing up, of course, I didn't think anything about it because, like, I was white, I was represented. That's what was in these programs. But looking back now, a lot of the shows that we grew up with, there was not a lot of representation.
Most definitely.
Um, what did that representation or the lack of representation mean to you or impact you when you were growing up?
Man.
Like, do you remember as a child having, like, thinking, why don't they look like me? And do you
Yeah.
feel there needs to be an emphasis on representation starting with kids programming and working up?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
and yes.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I'll go ahead and talk about this one. I'll go ahead and talk about this one. So me being, let's just me being a black girl. Let's just talk about that. Me being a black girl, in my Freesboro, just me being. I can just remember in elementary school, like just coming up, probably like first through fifth grade. I was probably maybe probably like the only black girl in my class, except for like maybe like two or three other girls. And just seeing, well, let's talk about, well, I know this isn't like in the media, Austin, and I apologize for that, but it's kind of like, I guess this could, oh, this one would kind of be the next question. I'm sorry. But just going, let's just go back to the media, but like just in TV shows and stuff like that, I most definitely see that. Just me growing up, I can just remember watching some shows like, or like even being into Disney. Like there was really no, Disney princess I could relate to, or I'm just like they all had kind of like flowy, long blonde hair with blue eyes, and I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to, do with this? And like, or just like, for example, me being in elementary school and like Halloween, people,
Mhm.
kids love to dress up for Halloween, and I'm like, I see everybody dressing up as like, Disney characters and all this, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'm kind of a black girl. I mean, I want to be Ariel because Little Mermaid was my favorite Disney princess. I'm like, I don't have long red hair. I'm not, I'm not white. I don't have, blue eyes. So I'm like, that would just kind of be off for me, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's a lot of underrepresentation, and I think it's gotten a little bit better since I've grown
Mhm.
up. It's gotten a little bit better. I'm not gonna lie, but I got kind of tired of seeing those shows where you just see that they have that one token black friend that's always there, and so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was one. Yeah, so I mean, now that I think about it, when I was younger, I didn't really like. There were certain pinpoints, like I was saying with the Disney princesses, that kind of affected me. But as I got older, I started to realize, like, wow, there really was no representation,
Yeah.
and there needs to be a change. Like,
Yeah.
we need to
Yeah.
advocate for a change there. Like me being young, yeah, like me being younger because you didn't know I was kind of really conscious about stuff like that. But there was little,
Mhm.
like I said, little red flags. But as I got older, I was like, wow, that's crazy. Like I really didn't have a lot to look up to. I mean, I still enjoyed watching the shows and stuff that I did,
Yeah.
but I feel like it just would have been a little bit better if there were a few more people that actually like looked like me and acted like me, and one
Yeah.
of those things.
Yeah. This is kind of gonna be like a tangent because it's like a kind of a load. Not well for people who don't really know me. I'm like a big movie TV guy, and
Yeah,
it kind of touched my childhood because growing up, like there's a period of my life when I was a kid where I guess I never really thought about skin color. I guess
yeah,
because
because you were a kid.
this,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like exactly, and like the school and like the school I went to and stuff like that we never really talked about it. I guess like we never
Yeah,
really made it a point of that, and I think most things I was watching, whether it was like cartoons or like TV shows, they were all white, and I never really thought anything about it. I was kind of just like, oh, like that's I guess normal, like whatever. But it wasn't, I guess, until like That's So Raven when I was introduced to that, or like Proud
right,
Family, where I was kind of just like, this is
right,
great, and
Mhm.
like they look like me. Why isn't there more of that? Because
Yeah.
right.
I don't, I guess, because I saw this post recently. I don't know if any of you guys saw it. It was like this post about Disney Channel and how they do that. Like you're saying, like they have the token black friend who
Yeah,
doesn't really have a reason to be there or like have anything to contribute to the show or story. He's just
Mhm.
there to just
They're
be there or
covering.
they're
to be
just there,
funny.
so they
Yeah.
can't really
They're.
say hey, or even, and
To
if we
be
really, oh sorry, I keep
no, you're good.
interrupting you guys, but even then, like the token black friend would be like the lightest of skin colors. Like you see what I'm saying
Yes.
there? It's like there's nothing wrong with like that, but it's just like the token black friend wasn't really like really didn't have like the black features, if that makes sense. It was always like the friend that had the straight hair, the hazel eyes, you see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying there? They weren't
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I
Yeah.
agree with that. And I think it's also the thing of, to me, it's a thing of like they're not even like a main character either. They're
Yeah,
only
that too,
there
that
with TV
too.
show wise too. It's like they're only there like maybe like once or twice a season. Like they're there like every now and then, but they're not really a part of the show.
Like a
They're just
main like
there.
kind of like a side
Yeah, like they're
character.
kind of just there to like for like a random story. Like oh, like Good Luck Charlie. Like when PJ, or not when PJ, but like when Teddy's like in love with Spencer, but then Emmett comes along. It's like oh, he's back after like 20 episodes of being gone. This
Right.
one episode he's gonna be
Mhm.
gone again, and it's things like that. Even with movies too, like Disney Channel movies, like I'm feeling like like I feel like Camp Rock. I don't even know if they had a black character or not. I feel like they didn't.
I
Maybe
don't
they
think they
did. I don't
did.
remember honestly. They
There
didn't.
were three
Okay, what am I
movies.
thinking of then?
To kind
I
of
can't remember if
make
they did.
reference to the post that Jameson was talking about, some of the things they discussed was Nico Harris, who played Brandon Michael Smith on That So Random and
That's
Sunny
what I
with
was
the
Oh,
referring to.
oh
Chance,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
how he was just kind of there, or the
Mhm.
black friends that Jameson referred to in Good Luck Charlie, how they only get brought in to deal with the white person's issue, and then they're cast
Yes,
off
Yes.
screen.
yes.
Another one that was on the post was how Zendaya was casted as the lead black character in a black family, yet Zendaya is mixed herself.
Yeah.
Those were just, and then I think the last slide, because it was an Instagram post, they had slides. The last slide talked about how, it kind of goes back to what Layla said. Disney princess films. It wasn't until I believe 2009 when Princess and the Frog came out
Princess and the Frog, yeah.
that there was a
And
black
then-
princess, and she spent the majority of the
Yeah, I was
movie
about to
as
say
a
that,
frog.
As a frog.
Yeah.
So just
then-
to make reference to what Jameison was referring to.
Yeah,
Or
to add
even,
that post, like,
oh,
oh
Go
no,
ahead,
sorry, you
Jameson.
go.
you sure?
Okay, I was gonna say just real quick, like to add on with the Princess and the Frog thing, like with Pixar, like they're making this movie called Soul, and they're doing the same thing. They have Jamie Foxx voicing this black character in this movie, but then he dies and he's a ghost for like the rest of the film. So he's barely like you kind of like the Princess and the Frog thing, where he's just a ghost the entire movie, and he's not really being represented, I guess, as well as he could have been.
Yeah.
And I know there was kind of a little uproar in the media. It wasn't as big, but people were starting to expose some TV shows or cartoon shows where half of the people or like some of the black characters on the shows were being like voiced by other
White people.
yeah, like white
Yeah.
people and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were calling that out as an issue. And I know and the Netflix original Big Mouth, Missy. I didn't even know this myself. She's voiced by a white woman. Did not know that, and I think she actually stepped down. I could be mistaken.
Yeah.
I think she
Actually,
actually
the past
stepped
few
down.
weeks it's been happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people from different, like the guy who voices Cleveland from Family Guy, he's white. He stepped down.
Yeah, I didn't know that
And
either.
a bunch of other shows. Like I think even Bob's Burger, there is a black trans character that was voiced by. I'm not sure if it was a white male or white female, but they were voiced by a white person just in
Yeah.
general, and they stepped down too. So it's like, I guess with this movement, a lot of people are kind of realizing that it's kind of wrong to voice. people
There's a
of
lot
color
of stuff
stepping down
going on
for-
behind the scenes. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy to just a lot of stuff is getting exposed, which is good. But
Yes.
yeah, that's
This
kinda-
Yeah,
this wasn't really on the topic list, but talking about the voice actor stepping down kind of made me think about it.
Mhm.
We've seen a lot in the past few months where voice actors who are white and playing people of color are stepping down. I saw where real estate is changing, like the name of master bedroom.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that. A lot of people just see it as fake activism, like just fake woke. People have said that they feel like big companies and big people are doing this just to make it look like they're doing
Yeah,
something
it's
instead of
not really
actually
a real problem.
changing the things that will create change. And I just wanted your guys' opinions on that. How you guys feel about that?
Well, I see the efforts, but at the same time, like we're not attacking the real issue here. Like I didn't even know about the master bedroom thing. I didn't even know that was like
Yeah, I didn't
the
hear about that either.
origins
I
of
had
it.
no idea.
I didn't know that either. But I mean, cool, that's an effort, but at the same time, that's not addressing the main problem here. Like we're
you can be doing
screaming, we
more.
want justice for Breonna Taylor, and they're like, okay, let's change the name of the master. Like that doesn't
Yeah.
really. I see the effort, but that's not what we asked for. Like that's not
Yeah.
what we asked for. 'Cause
It's
I've
like
never heard a black person complain about the master bedroom being the master bedroom.
everybody wants to walk right up to the line and not cross it. Why? It's like
Yeah.
I appreciate the efforts, but I'm a big person to actions speak louder than words. If you're a multi-billion-dollar company, I don't care if you gave $1 million to something. It helps, but that's pocket change for you. Why are you not doing something else?
And that's a whole nother topic. Eat the rich. Like that's
Yes,
a whole other,
yeah.
yeah.
Like y'all remember the video of the celebrity singing like that John Lennon song to fight against like black, like for black,
Oh,
not
yeah,
fight
yeah,
against,
I
but
think
just
I
for
know
Black
what
Lives
you mean.
Matter. It's like cool. You could have donated like millions of dollars or something, but cool. Sing a song that works.
Yeah,
too.
like open your purse. Like, come on now.
Yeah, like
And then-
show you are actually doing something, not that you had an
Yeah.
actor do this commercial for you. Like,
I
exactly.
mean, there's nothing
yeah.
wrong with donating in silence, but I mean,
Yeah.
why would you want to be silent about something like that?
and that's not to say I don't
Yeah.
appreciate the commercial. People need to see that. They need to
Yeah.
like the NBA
They-
starts back
yeah.
tonight. Like I'm watching it right now. Like people need to see that. There are gonna be people who don't know about the issue. They're gonna watch the game tonight, even though they're on Twitter. I'm not watching the game. Blah blah. You're watching the game. Quit lying to yourself. But
Yeah.
it's the point. Like, do something meaningful. It's like
Yeah.
it's it's like giving somebody a gift. It's the thought that counts, not how much.
Right, right. It's the
Like,
principle
Yeah.
behind it.
And
yeah,
and to kind of go off of like what Leo said, like I kind of agree. Like we all were kind of just like asking for like the police be held accountable and everything for what they've done. But if like cool, like white people stepped down to voice black characters, but that wasn't like what we were really worried about. Like it's cool you did it, but it's not what we really want. And yeah, it's the effort, but I feel like again, you could do more. Like yeah, you could do the little stuff, but it's the big stuff that really counts.
Like
mhm,
I will say, for example, when some of the major networks like change their logos, or like when now one thing I really did really appreciate when Nickelodeon did that minutes of silence, that was pretty
That
cool.
was good.
yeah,
That was
That was
pretty cool.
nice.
Because
yeah,
if I was a kid, like if that happened when I was like not into watching Nickelodeon, or like I
yeah,
mean I still do it now, but like if I was at that age, that would have been really like symbolic to me. Like
yes.
that would have been really really symbolic to me. And
That's change.
thing, yeah. And same thing for Netflix when they did like, or no, Apple Music when they did like that, when they were playing, they did that radio thing where they played like black music.
Hmm.
Oh
And
yeah,
when Netflix did something, I
the
don't know what
Black
they
Lives
did, but they
Matter
catered,
section.
yeah, they catered to like certain like black creators and movies. Now that was pretty cool. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie,
Hmm.
that was pretty awesome. And you know, as
It was nice.
networks, that's what they should do.
yeah.
But then one thing I don't, one thing that's kind of like weird to me when I see like politicians talk about like we need to change this and blah 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 blah. I'm like, well, just clock into work and do that. Like that's your job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't get me started on.
Like, did y'all see that one picture where it was like a bunch of like the officials like kneeling with the African cloth on? Like, I was like, yeah,
Hmm.
but like just clock into work and change that. Like a
Yeah,
little.
Yeah.
it's
Like
just
I see what you were
Like,
trying to do, but at the same time, like this is your job. Your
yeah,
job is to cater to the citizens. Like, what are we doing here?
yeah. I
yeah.
just
And um, just like I guess kind of loop around back to our subject. I was gonna say like I was gonna wanted to bring up how like yes there were like very few representation of Black Lives Matter. Like I said like previously, like That's a Raven,
yeah,
Proud Family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even like if there was like a black character as a main character, like Andre from Victorious, like I feel like there could have been way more shows like with black characters,
Definitely.
black people
yeah.
as main characters, and I
I,
feel like that with I guess with this, I'm hoping that channels can go forward trying to make more diverse productions.
it would be appreciated. I'll answer the question because I never really answered it. One of my favorite shows ever growing up was Teen Titans. Like I love Teen
Oh
Titans.
yeah.
On Teen Titans, Cartoon Network. Like not this new Teen Titans they got going now. I don't really rock with that, but the original Teen
Yeah.
Titans. Cyborg is the only black person in the group. He's a robot.
He's a
Why is he a robot? Like growing up as a kid, I didn't think anything about it, but then you look at it now and it's like, oh, what are you trying to say? So that's just and I'll circle back to the movie
but
when
oh, I thought you were done. Sorry.
when Straight Outta Compton came out. I was in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen so many people in an uproar about a movie, either for it or against it. And they really like I've said this multiple times. Middle school forever changed my life for the better and for worse. I think I don't know. It opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that happens in this world every day. When the movie came out, of course I'm 12. I don't get to watch the movie because it's
Yeah.
but and everybody's like all the even the teachers are talking about it. Like even the principals are like, why they're for it or against it. And I'm just like, why?
But really, if you think half of it wasn't even their place to say that because they never faced that struggle. And
Exactly.
I think another thing what people don't realize is that stuff actually happened. Like
Yeah.
that was just like what over a little over 30 years ago. If the math
Yeah.
is right. Well, maybe like like
Yeah.
stuff like that
Like
happens.
you felt uncomfortable watching it on a movie screen.
Now imagine how people actually
Hmm.
feel about it that were there. And
Yeah.
to go back to what Austin said a little bit about how even if like there's a token black friend, they're always fixing issues or like of the main characters, and I think that kind of paints like a frag like that kind of paints like a showing I don't know how to say it like showing that, black, like, they were always there to fix the problems, or, like, in some shows they were like the ones that kind of like struggled doing something. That kind of
Mm-hmm.
like paints a picture, and trying to it kind of like shows us, like, kind of like, I don't know, it just has something to do with being fragile. Like, like,
Or it kind
there
of
should be.
paints black people as like caretakers instead of humans.
Yeah, yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's another problem, that's like not with just only, well, kind of like black women in the black community as well. We are seen as always like, I don't know how to explain it. We're always seen as, like you said, caretakers, or always being strong all the time, and always being, but just always being strong and stuff, but not realizing that, we have feelings too. And like, it's just, kind of like the
Yeah.
whole thing that's going on with like Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez. A lot of people see, Megan as, this tall girl, um, basically tall stallion, how she is. And a lot of people are making jokes out of the fact that, she got shot. And I don't realize how people made a joke out of that, because I mean, yes, she has feelings too. And it's just one of those things where we don't have to be strong all the time. And that goes with men as well, not even just, being a specific color, but be like just having fragile masculinity. Men can be, men are, there's nothing wrong with. Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
we have feelings as well. Like, we're not, like, yeah, like you said, Austin, we're not just primarily caretakers. Like, we can be main characters as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And this is kind of going back to like the cyborg thing too. Is that growing up as a kid, I was a huge superhero kid. I love Batman, love Super Spider Man, and
Yeah.
it's kind of weird to me to know that there were black superheroes that could have been introduced and mainstreamed at like when I was a kid.
Oh
Like, we could have
yeah,
had like a
yeah.
Black Panther like cartoon series when I was a kid, or like Miles Morales, or like some of that. It's crazy that it's
Mm-hmm.
taken like I guess just now recently, these past few years, for characters
Yeah.
like that to finally be popular and famous with the general public.
Yeah. I
And
know. Like, I just got done. I actually like. I love Spider Man. Like, Spider Man's my guy. Like, I played the Spider Man game on my PlayStation, and at the end of the story, the next one is released on a new PlayStation. They're doing the Black Spider Man, and
I heard
I
about.
got on Twitter, and I was like, cool. Like, okay, I can relate to this. Like, I'll play. I was playing the game regardless, but I'll play it on the new system. It's a fun game for the most part. The story's great, and I get on Twitter, and people are like, I'm not buying it. That's not Spider Man. I'm just like, okay, or like, what do you like? Just come out and say that you're racist. Don't beat
yeah,
around the
Right.
bush. Don't, because they. It's not
basically,
like they just didn't tie Peter Parker like into it. And at the end of the story, like, I don't think any of y'all are gonna play the game. So, but at the end of the story, he
yeah.
goes off to like he's a grown adult. He goes off to college. Like, he's gone. Like, he'll be around to help, but he's gone. And now Marlo's taking over as the new Spider Man. So it's like,
Mhm.
it's not like they didn't.
Yeah,
It's not like they just got rid of him. It's all part of the story.
Right.
yeah. And I think with the point with that, like I was like basically how it taken so long to I guess have characters like that publicized. I guess
Yeah.
like why couldn't we have characters like this growing up when I was a kid? You know, because I could have looked up more like to Miles Morales or Black Panther when I was a kid rather than
Yeah.
like Superman or Batman. And
Yeah.
I'm just glad that I guess with these next coming few years, we're gonna get more diversity with that, like with like more projects including like characters like them.
Yeah.
Because most definitely representation matters.
Yeah. I think I got his name
Yes.
wrong, but y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
And I was kind of
oh, go ahead.
no, okay. I was like, I didn't. This is like the only research I've done. But I was kind of curious. This one was, the Oscars. Obviously, like they give awards to actors. Whatever. It's been around for like almost 100 years now, and
Yeah.
in the 100 years, only like 50 black actors have been nominated, with only like 14 winning. So not even half winning
Yeah.
their
Right.
award they've been nominated for. But that's crazy to me that it's only 50. That's such a low number for like hundreds of years, hundreds of nominations, and there's only 50.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to first. There were two kid shows that one briefly got mentioned and one didn't get brought up. That was also like on that Disney post. Somebody made the point that in Hannah Montana, which you look, like I'm a guy, but I'll fully admit, like I grew up watching Hannah Montana. Like that was my show growing
Oh
up.
Yeah.
Somebody made the point. There were only, if you think, there were three minorities You had Roxy, who was the bodyguard, who was just
Mhm.
like
Oh
painted
yeah.
as this crazy muscle man, basically. And then the two girls that were Hannah's villains. One was, I
Oh
believe, one was
yeah.
black and one was
Uh-huh.
Asian.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's
what?
right. I forgot about them.
Like, I think it just shows how deep rooted it is. Because
Yeah.
what are you conveying if the only two minority girls that show up in your show are the
Like
villains?
the villains,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know, if
Or like let's
Yeah.
you
talk
paint
about
them to be
Andre's
terrorizing the white girl and Hannah, what are
Yeah.
you telling the kids at home watching this?
or like Andre's grandma in Victorious. Like she was like
Oh yeah, she's
kind of painted
crazy.
as like, this crazy
Yeah.
lady that was like always paranoid of something
Which
happening
that
to
was
her.
actually that was the second show I was gonna
Oh,
bring
it
up
was.
because I'm rewatching Victorious right now on Netflix, and with Andre's grandmother, she's just the token crazy black woman. What kind of stereotype are you painting to your viewers at home? You
Right.
know, because
Yeah.
kids are so young that they see things on TV and apply it to real life. That they're just kids. They do that. That's just
Yeah.
how it works.
That's their nature.
So, say 6, 7 year old little white kid is sitting at home watching Victorious, and he sees Andre's grandmother, and he goes to Walmart with his mom, and he sees an elderly black woman. What is he gonna think subliminally about that black
Right.
woman just because of what he saw on Victorious?
And that's
Yep.
where it starts, honestly. That's really, like you
Yeah.
said, it's deep
Yeah.
rooted. That's
And
really where it starts.
Victorious, it even goes deeper because what made me think about it was when Jameison brought up Andre. I'm rewatching now. Uh, they're like Andre's always seen as the person that has to go fix everybody's issues.
You're right.
Yeah.
Anytime Kat or Robbie or Tori, who are all white characters if you haven't watched Victorious, anytime they have an issue, they go to Andre and Andre has to fix it. Andre,
Yeah.
like they never really work on Andre's issues, and anytime they do, which is something that I also saw in that Disney post, anytime Andre has an issue, it's always one of the white characters that comes in and fixes it. It's never
Yeah.
Andre struggling within himself and finding the solution himself. It's always Jade or Tori or Beck finding the solution for him. So
Yeah.
that's gonna send the message to the kid at home that this white person's always having to help a black person with their issues. That's not fair. That's an unjust and gross stereotype that's created
Right.
in these kids
Yeah.
shows. And the
And
same thing with, I think his name's Lane. He's like the principal or the counselor for Hollywood Arts or whatever. He has no story arc. He has no character development. He only shows up to fix issues between the white characters. So, these kids networks, they have to stray away from painting the image that black people are caretakers first and humans second. That's unfair. You can't do that. They're humans, not caretakers, humans.
Yeah.
Right.
Because even
I
like
think
with like the audio point, like oh no, you go X.
I think it's interesting now that because we all grew up on TV, like we all
The
had
same
cable
shows, too.
TV, like we had
Oh
cable
yeah.
TV, and now we have Netflix. The kids now are all on iPads. Like they don't really
Right.
care about TV. Can you imagine how much stuff they see on a daily basis just on the internet?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's the internet. You can find whatever if you look hard enough.
Oh, for
It's like
sure.
it scares me because like my little brother's in that situation. Like he's gonna be a sophomore in high school. He's been on an iPad his whole life just because of when he was born, and it terrifies me because like of course there's parental controls and stuff, but you can't watch your like you have to sleep at some point.
Right. Or you're
can't.
not gonna be on his hip 24/7.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
it terrifies me because, and this just goes back to I guess the system in a way. There's not a way to stop them from looking certain stuff up or asking certain questions or seeing certain things, no matter how hard you try. You just can't stop it.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of covered like the TB and representation point.
Right.
So the last point that I want to discuss for at least this session, we've kind of touched on earlier throughout the episode, but do you believe there is racial education inequality,
Oh yes.
which means just
Oh,
like
for sure.
race based inequality in the quality of education?
Can I
And
Can I?
what do you think can be done to create more equality in the school system?
can
Yeah.
I
Can
start
I?
with this one?
Go ahead. Go ahead. You start
Okay,
it.
so yeah, I'm just reading it right now. Yes, there are race-based educational inequalities in schooling. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start like giving a personal account. So if you guys didn't know, I mean, I went to Oakland Middle, and I was in Spectrum all 3 years. I was in Spectrum all 3 years, and Spectrum is basically like an English-based class. But the thing is, I was the only like minority in that class, and there was only maybe 15 people in there because it was a smaller class. But I was the only minority in that class. The only minority in that class for the 3 years I was in middle school. And to me, at that age, it kind of just felt it was scary to me all 3 years. I'm not gonna lie. I remember coming home and I would tell my mom that like I felt out of place, and I felt out of place because I was in that class, and I would just always wonder why it was that way. And it was nothing against my teacher at all. I had the most. She was one of the best teachers ever. Now I look back on it, I thought she was like really hard on me, but it was for a reason. But just seeing that, and I tried to get some of my friends to join, but they just didn't want to do it. But it
Yeah.
was just crazy to me because, you know, it was just underrepresented. It kind of it made me feel like I couldn't do it honestly. And I just always felt like I was the dumbest person in that class, and I just always felt like I always struggled with something. And it just I never wanted to tell my teacher about it because I just felt like, maybe she would think different of me, and maybe I struggled because, as silly as it may sound, because of my skin color.
Yeah.
And it was something that I really, really struggled with. And it was, but at the same time, it was some like now I look back on it, I proved myself that, I could do it, no matter the circumstances or no matter what, color I was and all
Hmm.
this. And, but it was tough. It was because I always just felt like because I was the only black person or the only person of color in that class, I felt like I had to like, push myself harder. Like I
Yeah.
had to push myself harder. Like I had to. And
Yeah.
even if you look back, to the civil rights movement, you see that black people black people have to work as twice as hard, when they, when they were in those positions. Like they had to work twice as hard because even if they slipped up once, like it was just one of those things. Well, oh, we expected you to do that, or it's expected of you. And me, like 60 years, almost 60 years later, I still felt the same way. And it wasn't because like the people in my class or anything like that, because for the most part, the my classmates were like pretty cool. They were, but it was just, I guess that was something like internalized in me because it's like, dang, I really am the only like black person in this class, and that made me feel some type of way. And I
Yeah.
mean, I would never want anybody else or any other person of color to feel like that because of their skin color, their intelligence should be insulted, and it's most definitely not like that at all. That's something that's really, oh, it's just crazy. Oh, it's wow, it is.
Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I feel like growing up in history, I feel like whenever we would talk about someone who was black and did something really important, it felt like we kind of just glossed over him. It felt
Yeah,
like we just went over what he did for like maybe like an hour, and then after that, that would be it. It'd be on the quiz, but we never would talk about it again. That would just be
Yeah.
consumed in the discussion. And I always thought there'd be more in depth conversations about people like Frederick Douglass or God, I'm blanking on his name right now. Booker, what is his name? Like Booker T.
Booker T.
Washington, I'm
Washington.
pretty sure. Yes, thank you. And like people like that, I just feel like we just need schools need to like have more in-depth lessons about people like that and what they did to like what they I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
contributed to our society and our like everything.
Most definitely, because I feel like black people, we are a huge part of American
Hmm.
history, a very large part of American history, and a lot of it goes unnoticed. And I don't know if any of you guys watched the movie Hidden Figures that came out.
Oh yeah, I have, yeah.
Yeah, that came out like a couple years ago. Now that was a really, really, really awesome movie. It showed just the struggles of them being like kind of like a white man's profession, and they were geniuses in my opinion. They were very brilliant women, and I think one of them actually like died, maybe like a year or two ago.
Recently,
Yeah,
yeah,
like a year or
yeah.
two ago, and that was just very, just to see their struggles. And like I said earlier, they had to work as twice as hard as the people around them because not only were they women, but they were also black women as well. And I think
And
there was one scene in the movie where they were doing something because they were doing like math, and everybody and one of the ladies she did all the math correctly, and they were like double checking her math, like really, really. They were just really being really skeptical about what she did, and she actually did it
Yeah.
correct. But it's
Yeah.
just those things like, and then when somebody else did it, that was a white man. They just kind of like brushed it off, and they're like, okay, you did it right, but they just had to, and that and stuff like that still happens. Stuff like that
Yeah.
still
It,
Yeah.
happens, and that's the part that really scares me. And I just honestly think that if we actually like showed kids of color that and they're capable of doing stuff like this, because there's a lot of kids of color now, and I've realized this even in middle school when I would try to get people to join Spectrum. They're like, oh, I'm not smart enough, or, oh, I'm not this. In all reality, they do have what it takes. And I think, that's another thing our system shows us. They believe that because, there's only, white people in this class, or only a certain, like, there, that means they don't qualify. And they don't, and that, leads them not to push themselves as hard because they already think in the beginning that, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I'm guilty of that. I really am guilty of that. But one thing that really, pushed me to do, be like the person I am now, I guess, and still continues to push me is Barack Obama. I'm not gonna lie. Because when I was in
Yeah.
first grade and I saw, a man on TV that looked, had the same skin color as me, was president of the United States, or, he
mhm.
won, that said something to me. I'm like, well, gosh, if he can do it, if he can do something like that, then I'm pretty sure I
Mhm.
can too. And I remember explaining that to somebody in my freshman year, just saying that like not only did Obama, that's one reason why, I guess people, you could say people love Obama so much, because he did something that was very, very, very big, very, very historic, remarkable, in our country's history. The first black man after 45 presidents is just wow. But at that time in 2000, 2007, 2008, that showed black kids around the country that there's somebody on that screen that's president that looks exactly like me. And that kind of just set the tone. It's like, wow, if he can do something like that, then maybe I can be the company of this president. Or I mean, I could be the president of this company. Or I can do this. I can be an astronaut. Or,
Mhm.
I can be basically whatever I want to be,
Yeah.
because I saw that somebody like me, well, somebody that looked like me, could do it too.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't think people understand that. But yes, going back to education, um if we I just feel like if there was more representation of, not only black kids but other kids of color, then maybe that would push other, kids to, maybe test their boundaries and
Yeah.
push themselves a little bit harder. Because I know a lot of smart people. I know a lot of people that have the potential, but they just don't believe they can do it because they haven't seen it happen. So
Yeah. And to kind of go back to what you're saying about like hidden figures and stuff, is that like yeah, they did all that work and they still got overlooked. Like it was one of the
yeah,
things that no
Yep.
one knew who these people were and what they
that's
contributed until this movie came out. And that's like
decades
another thing
later.
too,
Yeah,
is that yeah, like recent like movies and TV shows too, I think have had the job of telling these stories of people that of these stories and events that were overlooked. Like an example was like this recent show, like the Watchmen show on HBO. Like they talked about the Tulsa Race Massacre, which if you're not sure, if you're unfamiliar with what that is, it was like
mm-hmm.
this white people basically went down to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they attacked black residents and business of that district. And it was like it's been called like the single worst incident of racial violence in American history, and it's happened like in 1921. But I didn't even learn about it until like a month ago. Like this is
Mhm.
it's almost been a
Right.
hundred years, and I'm just now realizing that this happened. It was a terrible thing too, and I think it's sad that like a show on TV can teach me more about like people of um, like black people that have done so much rather than our own teachers and education system.
Yeah. I think for me, it all goes back to the cycle again. There's obviously inequality in the education system. If you just look at the school zones, you look at the schools in the
Oh
school zone,
yeah.
like you can go anywhere. I'm sure you can go anywhere in America. I know in Tennessee here, especially, you can go and you can just tell how much work they put into X amount, like this school. And it's always the school in the neighborhood that is poverty stricken, not doing as well as the other neighborhoods where the school is not doing as well either. Why is that? Like, why it all goes back to the beginning. If you're not gonna put money into the school, how do you expect them to get out of the neighborhood? How do you expect them to do like be able to see if they can do something else?
Hmm.
That
Right.
that's my
Right.
take on it. And it's just like you can go down, you can go to the other side of town, and there's schools with like 3 stories now that they're building. Like they're going up steps and elevators.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah, and I love all the personal experiences and stories that you guys shared, and kind of just showed that these are very real issues. These
Yeah.
aren't just, oh well, it doesn't happen here, it can't happen to me, blah blah blah. I wanted to add this at the end because you see so many times, so many brave black people, and and more than just black, all people of color,
Hmm.
speak out on their issues, and they're just ignored or minimized by white people. They try to invalidate people of color's experiences. So, I've often thought about my privilege and my education journey, and kind of thought of a few things that happened in my education that show the same issue but from the other side. Meaning that as a white person, here are how these issues were present in my schooling, and I never realized because I was white. Yeah,
Right.
I grew up Las Casas, Tennessee, small little town. I went to Las Casas Elementary School. When I was in kindergarten, there was
Hmm.
one black kid in my grade. By the second grade, he was not there anymore. I don't know why he left. I don't know why. Uh, that would be the last black person that I went to school with until middle school when I went to Oakland Middle.
That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I did not have a black teacher until my sophomore year of high school.
Wow.
I there were black teachers at my middle school, but I
Yeah.
never had
Yeah.
them. There was
yeah,
not a black teacher at Las Casas. There was not a Hispanic teacher. There weren't Hispanic kids. There weren't Asian kids. There weren't black kids. There were white kids with white teachers, and everybody always patted us on the back because we had good test scores, so we got good funding.
Right.
But
Yeah.
now that I think about it, we only got those benefits because we were white. We were
Right.
given the chance to have that good funding because we were white kids, and they put emphasis on it. We had those good test scores because we weren't living in poverty. We weren't living in a community or a city where the government had failed us.
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying that everybody at my school was making it big and making good, making great money or whatever. That certainly wasn't
yeah,
the case. My family just personally had their issues, but overall, there weren't those issues that you see in the inner city.
yeah,
And going back to things like the Tulsa riot, I was fortunate enough to take IB History of the Americas. It was a 2-year course, and it was basically college history, where I had a great teacher, Mr. Huffman, at Oakland High School, where we would talk about issues like that. We had a whole unit on civil rights, and I actually got to do a presentation about the Tulsa riots because, obviously I didn't meet you guys until I think I may have met Jameison in middle school, but I didn't really become friends with you guys until high school.
All right.
Middle school, me, especially sixth, seventh grade, I was a polar opposite of what I was now. I was
Mhm.
very conservative. I had, borderline racist and homophobic and misogynist ideals because, going to Las Casas, I never saw the other side.
Right.
I never saw that side. And so I had ignorance and I had hate, and it was not until, because obviously as I got to high school I started to become more progressive, but it was
Mhm.
not until junior year when I got to do that presentation about the Tulsa riots that that's when things started to change for me because you know I looked into the Tulsa riot for, to research my project, and it led me down a rabbit hole of other atrocities that black people and people of color had to go through in this country that aren't taught in the school system. And while I was lucky enough, or it's not even luck, I was privileged enough to be in the IB program. So I could learn about these things, but look at that IB program.
Right.
How many
That's
people of color are in that program? How many minorities are there?
Mhm.
Not a lot. And the ones that are generally do come from better households. You know, it's not inner city kids.
Yeah.
They,
yeah.
it,
Yeah.
they, history is so whitewashed that, uh, you know, we were actually kind of discussing this before we were recording. You know, like the presidents and everything. Growing up in elementary school, middle school, you're taught that, oh, like, you know, our founding fathers, these old, they were great people. They were just
Right.
wonderful people. You know, oh, George Washington, he's got those wooden teeth. That's hilarious. Good for him. And then you find out those are the teeth of a slave.
Yeah.
Oh
And half of them.
well, you know, George Washington had kids. Oh, it's or he had a black one that he was close to. Oh no, that's his slave that he raped. You know, Abraham Lincoln freed the black people. Oh well, he actually had slaves and he only did it to win the war. He didn't actually want to do it. You know, it's things like this that aren't talked about in the school system that creates the issue. And so,
Yeah.
what I just want to wrap my tangent up on is, you know, to anybody that might be listening to this and, you know, skeptical or thinking like, oh, like they're over stating it or they're creating too big of an issue. For anybody out there that tries to minimize what my guests have said or what any other people of color have said, yeah, you know, it's real easy to sit there behind a computer screen and, uh, you know, just ignore what a person of color has to say. But now that a white man has said it, I bet you'll listen. And that in itself is the issue.
Most
That's
definitely.
the issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Austin, I will say that I know you were saying like me, you were when you were in middle school, you had different ideals than excuse me, you have now, and that in itself is just like kind of like a superpower to me, honestly, because when people can, when you know people that are privileged can actually admit that they had some faults. I honestly feel like that's so like it's brave, like it really is
Yeah.
for you. It's very brave, and it's
100%.
yeah, and it's very like very intelligent of you to say that, like to just admit that yes, you had faults, but now or now you know better, and you want to not only do you know better, but you also want other people to be
Yeah.
aware of their privileges and be aware of other things that are going outside of just their little bubble. And that's amazing, especially being in the South as well. Like that's so amazing to me, just to be an ally and just to stand up. And I've seen many cases also where there are kids our age that are having different ideals than their parents as well, and they're actually calling out their parents and
Mhm.
their family members for kind of being borderline racist. And I think that is so cool and so awesome of them to actually be like
Yeah.
educate themselves and be aware on things that are happening now, to be like, hey, this isn't right, like this needs to stop. And
Mhm.
you guys, this isn't correct. But that's so brave of you, Austin. Like I really do admire you for that.
Yes.
That's great. I
Yeah.
love that about you. I really do.
We all appreciate it, man. For real.
Most
Oh
definitely.
You
yeah.
know, and that's
Yeah, that
what,
is
you know,
good.
that's one of the reasons that I started this podcast and that why I feel so adamant about the things that I do is because one night Katie and I were
Hmm.
talking on Twitter and we were talking about all these, you know, horrible issues that were going on, you know, because George Floyd had just been murdered. You know, women were getting kidnapped and beaten. And, you know, I thought I could sit here and go, oh, you know, like, that's terrible. It sucks and move on. Or I could try to do something.
Right.
I'm not the owner of Amazon with, you know, $800 billion to my name.
Right.
You know, I'm just a kid
Yeah.
with a microphone. But, you know, if I, as a white man, can recognize my privilege and use it to give others that platform to speak, then hopefully that can become normal. You know, I appreciate all the kind words, but you know, I don't want people to think that I do this just for, you know, recognition to be think this is what this is what normal should be.
Right.
This is the mindset that white people should have. You know, it's a shame that I even have this privilege. It shouldn't exist, but you know,
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah.
if I have it,
Yeah.
I have to use it in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it just goes back to the entire, you see how many black businesses or black voices aren't respected or aren't listened to or ignored. And that's why, I just as a white man want to use my voice and my platform that I'm given to try to
Yeah.
shine issues on other things. It kind of goes back to what Xavier said about the NBA, how,
Mhm.
they're putting Black Lives Matter on the court and they're talking about these issues because ultimately white people will see that. That
Yeah.
ultimately, you know, white people will see that, and those are the people that you have to get on board, which is a
Yeah.
shame because you should not have to convince somebody for equal treatment.
Yep.
But I just feel like doing a podcast like this, that's the least I can do, is to just try
I'd like to.
to give a platform.
I'd like to add one more thing. I know we're running out of time, but I don't condone rioting at all. I think there's better ways to go about things. But I'll say this: I understand why people riot,
Yeah.
and I'll say this: growing up in the South, I love college football. College football is great. I love all sports. I'm a sports junkie. That's for another day. But people, after George Floyd was murdered, people
That
were
was the last
rioting
football.
and they broke into the College Football
Oh
Hall of Fame.
yeah.
They enjoyed a bunch of stuff, and all anybody wanted to talk about was how dare they destroy the stuff. We have your attention now, so it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's not right. I don't condone it, but I understand why people do such drastic things to get attention for a cause.
And you know what? I want to go off of that too, Xavier, because that's something that really did. A lot of people were so they were really like they voiced their opinion a lot about the looting, but not the but not like
Yeah,
the reason for it. So like I just want to put out a little analogy out there, for example. So for example, let's say that you have a kid, right? He's always been bullied throughout school. Teachers gave him a hard time, kids are giving him a hard time, and just one day, he just decided that he just had it, and he just kind of spazzed out, and everybody's like, wow, well, this is what he does now. And I really think that that's kind of like an analogy to show what's going on now. Like, I honestly feel like as black people, we've tried everything. We've tried the peaceful protest, we've tried basically everything, and really, like Martin Luther King said himself, like a riot is the language of the unheard. Like,
yeah,
and it really
Mm-hmm.
is if you
Yeah.
think about it. Because I mean, think about, like, you've tried everything, and then
yeah,
you finally do something that gets somebody's attention. It's like we have your attention basically. And even with all the stuff that was going on in Minneapolis, like with the Target looting and stuff, even
hmm
like the CEO of Target spoke out to himself, basically saying that another Target can be built, but another life can't be brought back, basically. So he understood. And like you were saying, X, I don't agree with the writing, but like you said, it's working. Like, we're being heard, and that's really the only way we're going to be heard. And it really just goes to show you, like, how, I guess, it just really just goes to show you how people just really don't care. Like, they really don't care. Like, they were so talking
yeah,
about looting's bad, you shouldn't have done this, there's a
Yeah.
better way. I'm like, well, we've tried all the better ways, and everybody's done but complained about them.
yeah.
Like,
And they really don't want to talk about, like, if you actually watch the videos. There's a lot of people who are white looting
yeah,
too, but that's
that's
a
true,
conversation
yeah.
for another day.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Like for their own.
that's
Yeah.
that's just
It's something, like, it really is something to just think about. And it's just one of those things, you just have to put yourself in that, like I was saying, that bully kid's shoes. Like, if you were being bullied for that long, you've tried almost everything. You tried talking to your
yeah.
counselor, you tried, trying to figure out something with your pay, even tried to, like, go to a different school or anything like
hmm
that. But even at the end of the day, like, nothing really worked for him. So when he decided to, finally spaz out and he got mad, now everybody's like, whoa, why do you get mad? Or,
Yeah,
he has some underlying issues. And that's really what it takes, honestly. And it sucks that it takes people having to, like, ride in the streets and set things on fire. But I mean, like they said, no justice, no peace. And I really, I really stand by that. No justice, no peace. But I mean, I honestly feel like we're not going to be heard unless we do something extreme. And
Yeah.
another thing that bothers me also, this country, like, let's just think about it. We've been taught about the Boston Tea Party for like how many years now?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying there?
Right.
Like,
So many.
people literally got
Yeah.
mad, and then they just threw, they kind of like this country has a what do I want to say, a background of rioting and causing
Yeah.
street wars.
That's
Pay
how the
attention.
country was founded.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like we're known for stuff like that, but then once everybody, once this actually happens, everybody's like lost and confused. Like
Yeah.
no, and like I said, we've tried everything. Like when Colin Kaepernick, or I don't know if I'm saying it right, Colin Kaepernick, when he, Kaepernick, sorry. When he kneeled, everybody, called him a racist, said he was disrespectful, all this, all that. And literally it just goes to show you, like, we've tried everything to speak about injustices and nothing's worked. And even to an extent, only to an extent the riots work, because let's think about it. We only got justice for one person. We're still trying to get, justice for Breonna Taylor, and it's just crazy. And I don't know if any of you guys saw the video of our president coming out and saying that it was I think he was like, I forgot what it was. There was a lady interviewing him, asking how he felt about like everything that's going on, or about black people being murdered, and he was like, how dare you say that white people are being murdered too? That's an awful question, something like that. And it just goes to show you that like there's really we've tried everything. And even if your own president comes out and says something like that, then that should really show you something, or show you what our country is about.
It should say something to you. But
yeah, it should most definitely speak volumes. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna say something, and I'm gonna leave it right there. But I honestly feel like in this upcoming, if everything that's been going on doesn't encourage you to vote in this upcoming election, I don't
know what does.
I don't know what will.
At this point,
It's like we were talking about this the other day. Like the standard is so low.
Oh, most definitely.
It's so low to be president right now. It's like it's terrible. Just go vote. Go vote.
I think a perfect picture to paint to wrap things up is this analogy right here. Was it 2017, 2018, the Philadelphia Eagles defeat Tom Brady and the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. Eagles fans run out into the streets and they celebrate, and everybody's having a grand old time, and they start smashing windows and burning cars and burning buildings and fighting people, and everybody says, oh well, they're just silly football fans. Right. That's okay.
They're celebrating.
An innocent black man is murdered in the street. Murdered in front of everybody. There was no attempt to murdered. And people get out in the streets, and instigators who are not even the skin color of the man that died, start smashing windows and burning buildings. And all of a sudden, that's representative of the whole movement.
Yeah.
When a football team, football is a sport that, built off superstars, built off your quarterbacks. Your quarterbacks are usually white. Football is associated with white people.
Yes.
So when they act up, oh, little Johnny's just having fun celebrating his team. Yeah. People go to the streets to demand justice, and now they're heathens that burn things. That's the double standard that exists in America.
I'd like to say one more thing, then I'll be quiet. I love you all. If you want to talk, please let me know. I'll talk to you. I'm not hard to find. I'm not going to put my number on the podcast, but I'm not hard to find. I'm pretty sure everybody's listening to this. You can find me somewhere. You want to talk, let me know. I'll gladly talk to you over the phone, in person, whatever. There's nothing else. Conversations are going to have to be had eventually. So we might as well start now.
All right, most definitely.
So I think with that, I would like to thank Jameison, Laila, and Xavier for joining me. I can personally say that this is the third episode that I've recorded for the podcast, and it's easily my favorite one that I've done. There were so many interesting insights and perspectives that got put out there. I want to thank all of you for I want to thank you three for joining me, and everybody that's listening. Want to thank you for listening.
Thank you for having us. For sure.
Thank you.
You know, this is a great conversation, and I'm just very glad it could happen.